No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show brought to you by Betway. With Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel, here to talk about the most lopsided defeat so far this season by the Winnipeg Jets, losing 6-1 in St. Paul, Minnesota. A performance that will certainly go down in the annals, much like last year's Thanksgiving performance, as one of the weaker efforts of this season. Ezzy, the game wasn't much to talk about. We'll still, stomach through it and fight through it and talk about it. But the opportunity just to spend some time one-on-one without deadweight Manouk around is an opportunity that I'm glad to have. The two of us, of course, and all the hundreds of people who are going to be tuning in, watching us. It's nice to see you, my friend.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure this is the first game that Dave has missed this year. If it isn't the first, it's the second, because we're 18 games into the season now.
Yeah.
And he got through 17 straight, so that's pretty good. I've missed 3 or 4. So I got to give Dave M credit. He deserves the night off with all the work he does on the website and the post-game show and the Saturday show. But yeah, it's a nice little rare opportunity for the two of us to do a little show, kind of going back to the 1290 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was very reminiscent of last year's Thanksgiving. The Jets and the Wild have a very weird relationship. Like, they obviously don't like each other, being, very geographically close to each other. But you would think that, the Jets would make this game a little bit closer. But obviously, there was a little bit of a comeback there in the second period after Kyle Connor got the Jets within 2 goals. But, this was all Wild. And give the Wild credit, right? Like, we talked about it a little bit on the Saturday show, kind of previewing the games coming up against the Wild and the Stars and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Mm-hmm.
This Wild team is only at least heading into this game, they were only a couple of points out of a wild card spot, right? Like, they weren't playing that great. They'd only won one game out of their last 4, if I'm not mistaken. They won their last game on Saturday versus the Hurricanes. So they had 3 days off between games. So you were wondering, would there be any effect in the first period? But obviously not, because they were the much better team, badly outshooting the Jets. I think it was like 13-2 at one point, and it was 16-5, if I'm not mistaken, after one period. So give them credit. They were just a much more desperate team. Like, the Jets did not come to play in the first period, and they were badly outplayed, and they really couldn't recover. Like I said, I mean, they made it interesting there later in the second period, making it a 2-goal game. But obviously, the Wild took advantage of the 40 seconds or whatever it was left on the power play, and Kaprizov made it 4-1, and the game was basically over at that point early in the third.
That's the part that to me was so surprising. You first of all, about the number of players on that Jets roster who have ties to the Minnesota area. You have Blake Wheeler's dad, in a very nice touch, sort of announcing the lineup in the dressing room. I'm shocked that, given, what did you hear? Dylan Samberg had 40-something family members and friends in town. He was playing tonight's game.
Half of Hermantown was there, I think.
Yeah, he was playing tonight's game for free, no question. I'm shocked at how flat the Jets came out for tonight. I thought that, they would have had, some extra jump in their game, and they certainly can't use any sort of the tired factor as an excuse, because they haven't had a back-to-back. They've been playing, every second night after having a pretty light majority of November. So this wasn't a fatigue factor whatsoever. This Jets team just didn't really look ready to play the vast majority of the game, no question. But it was just shocking to me at how lethargic they looked to start this game. They looked lethargic throughout the majority of the game, but just a very surprising lack of energy for a Winnipeg team that I thought would have a lot of jump in their step. This being, a homecoming for so many of the players.
Yeah, it's pretty inexplicable, and the bounces were obviously going the Wild way. We'll get into the goals, but goals were going off of defensemen back. They were popping up in the air, going off of Hellebuck, going off of sticks, going off of heads, shoulders. So, I mean, it was kind of one of those games. And, you know, the thing with the Wild is they're a good defensive team. And Philip Gustafson, I think, deserves a lot of credit. He wasn't spectacular tonight,
He was
but he made a
solid.
really good save. You remember the Cole Perfetti save when John Merrill blew a tire and then Wheeler took the puck and they went on a 2-on-1. Wheeler made a beautiful pass. I thought Wheeler, you know, even though he didn't have the strongest game, and that was a beauty pass to Perfetti, and Gustafson just made the right pads. I believe it was it was a pad save on Perfetti. Perfetti just couldn't elevate, right? But it was that kind of summed up the night for the Jets, right? Like it just wasn't their night. And you know, the Wild were just better and sometimes you just have to say that, right, Drew? Like sometimes you just have to say that the Wild outperformed the Jets. You look at a guy like Matt Boldy, right? Like Matt Boldy, first round pick 2019. I think he was taking 7 or 8 spots before Heinola, if I'm not mistaken. This was a guy who hadn't scored in 5 straight games, right? Like, so this isn't a guy that was like red hot going into the game. Same thing goes for Marcus Foligno. I want to say Marcus Foligno, Drew, it was 10 or 11 games that he didn't have a goal, right? And he had 2 goals tonight. So I think he had 1 goal heading into the game, right? So he tripled his goal total tonight. So, and Foligno's a guy that's kind of given the Jets headaches, you know, in the 4 or 5 years that he's been with the Wild. Because of course he was with the Sabres before that, right? So, you know, give the Wild credit. Guys like Foligno and Boldy, like they were hungry tonight. And, you know, they were crashing the net, making it real difficult for Connor Hellebuck. So you're right. I mean, it is surprising. I thought this was going to be a lower scoring, you know, closer game, but it was obviously the opposite. But yeah, the Wild just, they wanted it more. They made it difficult. The game plan tonight was clearly, you know, get in front of Connor Hellebuck, you know, get traffic in front of the net, jump on rebound, stuff like that. And, you know, the Jets just, I mean, another example on the power play that the Wild scored on, Matt Boldy, like it was just, there was too much time and space. Like I don't want to, you know, pick on Dylan Sandberg, who had a lot of family, but he was playing on the left side. Pionk was playing on the right side. So you had the Minnesota connection there on the back end. But I mean, Boldy just had time and space, and it was just bad coverage. So to me, just there were too many things that went wrong for the Jets tonight, Drew.
There was no shortage of breakdowns by this Winnipeg Jets team. There were breakdowns. There was times where the physical nature, I thought, of the Minnesota Wild was sort of, I don't know why, I don't want to say intimidated the Jets, but certainly was more noticeable than the Jets were. I mean, for a lot of the game, I thought the Jets had trouble getting in front of Gustafson. You know, to take away his eyes, to get in front of him, to get to those dirty areas, whereas Minnesota had a lot more capability of getting there and a lot more ability getting there. Look, the first couple of goals from Minnesota, and we'll get into them, you know, aren't pretty goals, but there's traffic in front and they're getting some good bounces. And you could argue, you know, if you take the first 2 goals of tonight's game and you look back and the 3 goals that the Jets gave up against Carolina on Monday night, you know, a lot of that is just sort of net front presence and, you know, maybe some fortuitous bounces, not to take anything away from the Hurricanes comeback or the Wild's performance, but, you know, maybe they're getting some better puck luck and getting some better bounces, but that's coming from being in front of the net. And I thought the Jets were too much of a perimeter team in, you know, throughout the game, you know, for the majority of the time when, you know, look, goalies at the NHL level, usually if they can see it, they're going to save it. And that's true for, you know, most goalies top to bottom throughout the league. You got to take away their eyes. You got to get there and make it difficult on them. And I thought Minnesota was doing that and the Jets weren't doing that in tonight's game. And that's probably, you know, a size factor. You know, Minnesota's, you know, a pretty big team, and the Jets, you know, they have some bigger players, but, you know, those guys are sort of towards the bottom of their lineup up front. You know, whereas Minnesota's guys, you know, are sort of up and down their lineup. They have a skill guy with some size there. I just thought that Minnesota was more than the Jets were able to handle in tonight's game, Ezzy.
Absolutely. And we have to give a shout out to, you know, this is a Hockey Manitoba shout out as well. A couple of alumni of our provincial team, Connor Dewar from the Paw, who was on the 2015 Canada Games team as a 15-year-old, and Caitlin Addison, who I believe was on either the 2018 or 2019 provincial team, but he of course also represented Team Canada. He played on that team that won gold with Joel Hofer in net, right? So we got to give those couple of good Manitoba boys from Brandon and the Paw a shout out. But really, Drew, like until Rick Bowness made that change, and it was when the Jets were down 3-0, I believe. It was when the Jets were down 2-0 when they flip-flopped Dubois and Scheifele, and then obviously Dubois and Connor have some chemistry going back to last year. But up until that point, really none of the 4 forward lines, like we talked about Cole Perfetti's 2-on-1 chance, but aside for that, we talked about the lack of shots in the first period, but midway through the second period, the Jets weren't looking too hot either. So there just wasn't a lot of, Kevin Sawyer often talks about this. They didn't seem connected. They just didn't have a lot of sustained pressure. And you're right. I mean, the Wild's mantra tonight was obviously, physicality, crashing the net, go to the dirty areas. And sometimes, that's not the sexiest type of hockey, but it was effective tonight and it worked. They got dirty goals. They needed a win. And if you don't think that the Wild see, the Jets and the Avalanche and the Stars at the top of the standings, they know like this is the time. We talk about it a lot, right? At American Thanksgiving, like the Wild needed this win much more than the Jets did. And, sometimes desperate teams do desperate things. And, a lot of those goals, you can't fault Hellebuyck. And by the way, like I saw, a conversation on Twitter, Scotty Billick was talking about this, about pulling Hellebuyck. I'm not sure if, you do that after the 5-1 goal or you do that after the 4-1 goal. I wouldn't read too much into it. Like, I don't know. I mean, if it's maybe 7-1, 8-1, I don't know. I mean, that's up until the coach, but I definitely didn't think Rick Bowness was hanging Hellebuyck out to dry. I think his teammates did that.
Yeah, no. Look, there's no question that, if you're going to lay the blame in tonight's contest, I mean, Hellebuyck wasn't, anything to write home about. He was average at best, but you're far more concerned with the play of some of the forwards and some of the defensemen than you are with the play of Connor Hellebuyck. In terms of that, pulling him, it's 3-1 after 40 minutes. So it's, still anyone's game at that point in time. After it's 4-1, I don't think you pull him at that point because it's almost too early in the third period.
The game's pretty much over, but it's just not the right time to do it.
Right. If they gone up 4-1 or 4-0 in the second period, then I could have seen a goalie pull happen. But you have an off day tomorrow. It's not like, he didn't play on Monday. So again, it's not a fatigue factor. You're not at risk of overworking him, by keeping him in there for tonight's game. And you know what? Maybe if it lights a bit of a fire under your forwards and defensemen for games in the future, seeing how, you sort of let your goalie down after he really saved your bacon so many other times this year, maybe you can use that as a bit of a driving force when you get back in action on Friday against the Dallas Stars. Just all around a very disappointing effort by the Winnipeg Jets tonight.
Yeah, and again, we'll get into the goals because we have seven of them to get into. But, we talked about the Matt Boldy goal, the 6th goal in the third period, the power play goal. But when you're talking about the Marcus Foligno second goal that made it 5-1, I mean, that's Blake Wheeler's got to wear that, right? Like that's all he will. And he was at the end of and again, like, he's a guy that, holds himself accountable, holds the team accountable. But I mean, that's just a bad turnover. Yeah. I mean, they're just like, you had enough time and space. And, again, end of the shift. So I get that because I think it was the third line that came on after that, if I'm not mistaken. Janssen Fjallby, I remember, it was the third or fourth line, and Wheeler was the last guy on his line to get off. So I get that he was tired. But, I mean, that's just a terrible turnover. So to our point about Hellebuyck, I mean, do you pull Hellebuyck after the 5-1 goal? Like, I guess my point would be, does it even matter at that point?
It doesn't matter at that point in time. I think, if they had run away with the game in the second period, then, if it's out of hand after 40 minutes, then I wouldn't be shocked to see Riddick start the third period in goal. But it was still anybody's game, after 40 minutes. The Jets, arguably were fortunate to be in the position where they were in after 40 minutes, only down 2 goals. That quickly became 3, of course, as we'll get into. But, I just don't think that the timing was right at any point during the game to make that kind of move into, so I'm fine with the way Connor Hellebuyck was handled.
I honestly, I just saw Scotty Billick brought it up, sent out the tweet, and then a few people were getting in on it. So obviously, Scotty's entitled to his opinion, good friend of the show. I really, that wasn't crossing my mind. I just couldn't believe how badly the Wild were outplaying the Jets, considering how good the Jets were for the majority of the game against the Hurricanes. Obviously, the last 5 minutes where the Hurricanes tied it up with the net empty, that wasn't that great. But Wasn't expecting that at all tonight. But again, give the Wild credit. Sometimes you just have to give the other team credit for playing a much better game.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Let's get into the goals in tonight's game. It's the Betway game recap brought to you by Betway, one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is the sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront with a large selection of betting options and sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds. What are you waiting for? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. As we talked about, the Minnesota Wild opened the scoring in the first period at the 8:20 mark of the first period. Mason Shaw gets his third of the season. Assist to Matt Dumba, an old friend of the Winnipeg Jets, Nick Patan, also getting in on the scoring. That's his first assist of the season. It's 1-0 for the Minnesota Wild at that point in time. Just sort of a bit of another fluky goal, a double deflection, a double bounce a little bit, and it beats Connor Hellebuyck. He probably doesn't love the goal, getting scored on him. It's not one that he's going to be thrilled about giving up, but you can see at least the way the puck moved is to sort of understand it a little bit better than at first glance, I would say.
Yeah, like it went off of Morrissey's back, Drew. So, I mean, anytime that happens, I mean, that it's not the goalie's fault.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to read that. So, you mentioned Nick Patan. This was only his second game of the season. He played the last game we mentioned on Saturday.
His revenge factor was high, clearly.
Well, you know what? Nice for him, though, right? Like Nick Patan for I forget if he was a second round pick or a third round pick. There you go. 2013 in New Jersey, right, Drew? So, for a guy that was drafted in the second round, obviously he didn't play as many games as he would have liked with the Jets organization or, in the NHL in general. But, nice for him, getting some games in the NHL. But you're right. I mean, this was, going to the net. We talked about Connor Dewar was in front of the net, battling with, I believe it was Josh Morrissey. And we talked about, the puck just, it's just an unfortunate bounce, good on the Wild off the faceoff for just putting the puck on the net. But again, that's one of those goals that you can't really overanalyze too much. It's just unfortunate, that the Jets got off to that start, but you got that feeling with the way the Wild were controlling the play, generating scoring chances. It's not surprising in that situation that the fourth line was the line that got the goal, because I'm sure we'll get into, Kirill the Thrill and Matt Zuccarello and Sam Steele, former Regina Pat standout, but that line is unbelievably talented. Like, Kaprizov had 108 points last year. And Matt Zuccarello has been doing it in the NHL for many, many years. So, that's the line that you expect to do a lot of the damage. But in this particular case, the fourth line guys got it done.
Yeah, absolutely, they did, and it's and look, the Jets are fortunate to only be down 1-0 after 20 minutes, because that was an awful first period. They just weren't
one of the
ready to
worst.
play.
I was telling you, Drew, right before we went live here. The only period that I can think of that was worse was the period on the road in LA when they got outshot. I feel like it was like 17-4 or something ridiculous like that. So to me, it reminded me a lot of this game, where the Jets just never seemed to get themselves under control, didn't really seem to put together 2 or 3 good shifts, and the pace was just completely dictated by Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly right. Just completely dictated by Minnesota is right, and they seem to have the puck on their stick the entire time. Jets get outshot 16-6 in that first period, and it's I'm surprised that it even seemed more one-sided than that. That was just an awful first period by the Jets, and you're thinking, okay, well, one goal is one goal. It's not the end of the world. You might be able to get back into it a little bit more. In the second period, maybe you realize, your first period was awful. It can't continue. Well, the second period and the start of the second period wasn't much better. The entirety of the second period was better. But again, the Minnesota Wild are still the better team to start the second period. And at the 2:50 mark of the second period, you talk about the Manitoba connection. We talk about the Minnesota connection. Here's the Manitoba connection for the Minnesota Wild. Kalen Addison, he gets his first of the season, assisted John Merrill and Matt Boldy, and it's put a puck on net, and good things are going to happen. It's a fluke goal. I mean, this is as fluky as they come, where it just sort of bounces high in the air, and it looks like it's deflected off of Heinola. It was even sort of hard to see who it actually hits on the replay. It just sort of goes up in the air and flutters over top of Hellebuyck and lands, eventually gets into the net after a bit of a goal mouth scramble. it's ugly, but it's beautiful at the same time if you're a fan of the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about that size mismatch earlier. You had Ville Heinola battling with Jordan Greenway, who's a big boy.
Jordan Greenway's a big boy.
He's only played 8 games this year. I haven't been following the Wild close enough. I'm not sure what Greenway was dealing with, but he's obviously missed more than half of the season thus far. But he's an important player for them, right? Like he's usually on that third line. I believe third line or second line. Joel Eriksson. He's usually paired up with Joel Eriksson. He's a winger. But he's a good player. I mean, he's still a young player, but he's battling with Heinola in front of the net. And, I'm not sure, the goal was reviewed. I'm not sure if it was high stick that they were reviewing, because I don't think there was goalie interference on the play.
I think they were maybe seeing if it was deflected in off of a glove hand. That's the only thing that I could maybe think that they were looking at. It was clearly a good goal. There was nothing to see on the video review, but they did look at it, and there was 2 things that I think they were maybe looking at to see if it was knocked in with a glove hand in the sort of scramble in front of Connor Hellebuyck.
It was Lowry and Boldy that were battling right at the net, and then it popped up, and then it went in. I think there was also some maybe some consideration of it going off of a skate. I have no idea. But the puck clearly went in. It never touched Boldy.
No. I mean, it was clear, and I don't have a problem with them taking a quick look at it. They didn't spend hours, reviewing it like it's the Zapruder film or anything like that. They took a quick glance. They said, good goal, let's move on. And so that was fine. That's how video review should operate. You look at it. If there's nothing glaring, you move on. You don't sit there and try and find something.
It was a pretty quick review, though. I mean, it wasn't
because it was obviously a good goal. There was nothing about it that would delay it or make it longer than anything. But it's 2-0 for Minnesota at that point in time. And again, the Jets are slow to start the second period. There's no life in their game, which is very surprising to me. Especially, surprising to me after the start of the game that they didn't have any life. And then it's surprising to me that in the second period where they think, well, maybe we get a bit of a pass for that first period, we're only down a goal, there's still no life in their game. And really, with the exception of maybe 5 minutes in the second period that we'll touch on coming up here in a couple minutes, they didn't have much life in their game for the most part. Just very surprising, not what I expected from this Winnipeg Jets team tonight. In fact, I thought the Minnesota Wild might be the team that's a little more sluggish. When you're playing at home and it's the day before Thanksgiving, maybe your focus is on the
and you've had all those days off, right? Like we talked about it. 3 days out. Saturday was their last game. Like that's a long time between games. I think even more so when you have a little bit of a break coming up, right? So you're right. I mean, the start, just the overall game was pretty inexplicable. And you could say that, look, even if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Colorado Avalanche or whichever elite team you want to pick, you could say that those teams throughout the course of an 82-game schedule, Drew, are going to have a bad game. But this was particularly bad. And it is deflating when you let in a goal at the beginning of the period like they did, Kalen Addison's goal, but then you give up another quick goal a minute later or just over a minute later, and that's even more deflating because the way that you're playing, the Jets were playing, you knew it was going to be tough to score, you tie that game up. So, sometimes you just have to not really, I mean, I don't have any answer for it. It was just, it was not the Jets' night.
Yeah.
And they just weren't very good tonight. They weren't sharp. Sometimes the Jets were having trouble just getting through the neutral zone and getting anything going.
Just connecting 2 passes would seem to be a struggle for the Jets for a lot of the game. I mean, to your point about it happening to good teams, look at the Carolina Hurricanes tonight, losing 4-0 on home ice to the Arizona Coyotes. That's certainly another one of those unexpected results.
Again, inexplicable, I think, Drew, is the word of the night.
Yeah, there you go. I would agree with that. The St. Louis Blues.
Because I'm sure, sorry, I was going to say, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Of all the teams the Jets have played this year, in my opinion, the Coyotes are the worst.
Well,
record aside, I realize the Ducks are technically the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
But that game in Arizona was one of the hardest games to watch because the Coyotes don't have a lot of skill. Aside from Clayton Keller and a few other players, there's not a lot there.
The Ducks have more skill with just in Zegras, I would say, is more entertaining than anyone on the Coyotes roster. That's a digression. But we talk about, look, St. Louis, they were trying to win what were they trying to win? Their 9th in a row, I think, tonight. They lose 6-2 in Buffalo. So
they only go on streaks. They only
Yeah.
lose a bunch of games in a row and win a bunch of games in a row. They don't like to play, win a couple, lose a couple.
Yeah, that's right. They want to win 8 and lose 8. 3-0 for Minnesota, a minute and 8 seconds after they made it 2-0. Marcus Foligno, his second of the season, his first of the game, assist to Dumba and Eriksson Ek on this one. And the Jets just lose them. They lose them. It's a rebound. It's a big rebound off of Connor Hellebuck. It almost looks like one of those deliberate shots to a far pad where there's going to be the rebound onto Foligno's stick, and nobody's covering him. And that's really the story of the Jets. The Jets just didn't tie up sticks a lot tonight. They didn't out muscle and outman the players they were playing against for a lot of tonight's game. And this one, you can look at it, I think it was sort of Pierre-Luc Dubois, Josh Morrissey. They're sort of caught in no man's land here, and nobody jumps on Foligno, and he's got a wide open net off the rebound to make it 3-0.
Well, specifically, you mentioned the line. It's Dubois and it's Wheeler. Before they switched the lines, Wheeler and Perfetti.
Yeah.
And Foligno, there's a board battle with Wheeler and Perfetti and Foligno there, and the puck comes out, or I don't know if it stayed in the zone or came out. I think it stayed in the zone, and then Wheeler and Morrissey goes to challenge. I think it's Eriksson Ek, if I'm not mistaken.
Right,
he goes up to challenge someone, and you can see. And I remember watching it live. I went back and I PVR'd it, rewound it, and you could see that Wheeler and Perfetti both start going up the ice because they think that Morrissey's going to come out of that battle with Eriksson Ek, but he doesn't, obviously. And the shot is taken. Was it Eriksson Ek that took the shot, Drew? Sorry, I forgot.
Eriksson Ek. It was Dumba.
I think it was Dumba. It was Dumba that took the shot. But you could see that then Foligno just goes to the net and he gets the rebound.
Yeah.
So you're right again. So I don't know who you want to blame there. If you want to blame Wheeler or Perfetti or both, but they kind of go to fly the zone, and Foligno just goes to the net uncontested and gets the rebound. So again, 3 goals. None of them are Hellebuck's fault, in my opinion.
It was, and the story of the Jets game is, they lose a board battle against a bigger player, and like you said, there's no need to be flying the zone at that point in time. You haven't been able to connect on any passes. You need to start small and build up. And the Jets are looking for home runs when they don't exist in this instance, and it ends up costing them 3-0. Not even 4 minutes into the second period. Now, this is where, after that 3-0 goal, this is where you saw the tide turn a little bit in the Jets' favor. This is where they finally started skating and finally started putting some shifts together. You have Kyle Connor, and we'll get to his goal in a second, but, there was he had the opportunity where he put it off the post. And then you have Cole Perfetti and Blake Wheeler, which we touched on earlier. They have the opportunity to on the 2-on-1, and Wheeler with a beautiful pass to Perfetti. I think if it's later in the year, Perfetti buries that goal. I just think that he's talented rookies just need something eventually clicks for them, and it hasn't quite clicked there yet for Cole Perfetti. I think it was Nikolai Ehlers in a game in Madison Square Garden in his rookie year. There was, I remember him going almost coming over the blue line and sort of being at the top of the circle, maybe a little bit closer to the top of the circle, and just wiring a slap shot bar down. I think he was on a one-on-one battle, and that to me is where it clicked for him. I'd have to go back and look at the actual particulars, and it's entirely possible I'm mixing up games. It's been a lot of years. It's been a lot of games, but
I remember it was early in the season. So whether that was his rookie year or whatever, I know exactly what goal you're talking about. It was like a snapshot that I think went bar down.
Yeah, it went bar down. It was in Madison Square Garden.
It was one of those goals where you're like, okay, wow, like
this guy's got some talent.
Yeah, like this guy is really good. We already knew that he was really good coming out of junior, but it was like you said, it was one of those games where, and after that, I think he did go on a goal scoring streak. So it doesn't really matter what year, Drew, but because let's be honest, we've been doing this show for well, not the post game show, but we've been doing the Illegal Curve Hockey show for over 13 years actually at this point. So it's kind of hard to remember each year exactly, but your point is well taken. It's just a matter of time before Perfetti breaks out. Like this guy was excellent in Ontario Hockey League. He was excellent for the Moose, before cracking with the Jets. So, he is, goal scorers are going to score their goals, and he's still, remind yourselves, guys, he's only 20 years old.
Yeah, exactly right. So he's going to get it. I'm not worried. But in any event, a missed opportunity there. But then they get on the board, and it's just Kyle Connor. He just takes over for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes of the game. In consecutive shifts, he gets close, and then he just sort of takes the puck and he has it on a string, and you could feel something was going to happen. When he was dancing around there, and the Wild had no answer. They were definitely on their heels. There was that icing, and there was just the Jets were able to string together a couple shifts in a row. And Kyle Connor, looking like the dangerous goal scorer that he is, gets his 6th of the year. Of course, the assist goes to Josh Morrissey, because all Josh Morrissey does is get assists, some goals too, but assists more so this year. And Mikey Eyssimont gets his first NHL assist after getting his first NHL goal the other night. So and it's 3-1, and there's about 5 minutes left in that second period, and so the Jets have life. They've been badly outplayed for let's say 35 of the 40 minutes in the game to this point, but they have a little bit of life at 3-1 after the Kyle Connor goal, Ezzy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned Eyssimont there, like how he was crashing the net. Connor, and mentioned Morrissey, who seems to get an assist every single game when he's not scoring 2 goals, including the overtime winner. But, I love that he gets in there, and Connor's first shot, he retrieves the rebound and gives it to Connor. And then Minnesota just, I don't know if it was a combination of fatigue or nobody wanted to take Connor or what it was, but Connor went in the corner and got the puck and then just came out and there was nobody around him. So he just skated in front of Gustafson, shot the puck in. So again, Connor was rewarded for a lot of hard work there, and he was shooting the puck a lot in the second period. And you're right. That was the first time in the whole game that the Jets had life, and a lot of it had to do with flip-flopping Dubois and Scheifele.
I would agree with that. So it's 3-1 after 40 minutes, but late in the second period there, Perfetti takes that slashing penalty. And it's a bad slashing penalty because I think it's a penalty born out of frustration, because if I recall correctly, I believe there's a neutral zone turnover that leads to he's responsible for, that leads to the puck going back into the Jets zone, and that's where he takes the slashing penalty. That leaves the Jets shorthanded to start the third period, Ezzy. And there's been a couple times this year where Perfetti has taken frustration penalties, and I'm not picking on him, but he just can't get away with those things. When you're a rookie, you don't get as much leeway as veterans do sometimes when it comes to the officiating. And this is just another one of those instances where, yes, you're frustrated, but you have to find a way to channel it in a more effective manner, and you can't put your team down a player, starting the third period.
Absolutely. And it was unfortunate too, because, at the end of the second period, the Jets did a great job, killing the early part of that penalty. Sure. Right. But it's always tough.
First minute 20.
Right. And it always worries me when there's 10 seconds left in a penalty to start a period, or 15 seconds. I'm never as worried as much, but I was a little bit worried. I don't know why, but just with the amount of time that was left, I was thinking the way Minnesota was playing, I was like, okay, if the Jets kill this off, then they have a chance at winning this game. And we know what happened. Kaprizov scored. Yeah. But again, Perfetti took a bad penalty at the end of the second period, Drew, and Dubois took a stupid penalty. I believe he was in the penalty box when Boldy scored his goal.
Yeah. But the game's out of hand at that
sure,
point.
But the game's out of hand, but also same kind of thing. And Wheeler took a penalty. Was that the first period? He took the hooking penalty.
The hooking penalty.
Dubois also took if I'm not mistaken, a holding penalty or hooking penalty. I forget who it was on. I have to go back and check. But he put his arms up in the air, but it was clear. I want to say it was Dumba, but I might be wrong there. I've been wrong.
That was the one that ended the Jets power play. Ended the Jets power play very quickly there. It ended the Jets power play 24 seconds after it began.
Right. So when things are going well, Dubois is drawing multiple penalties. When things are going bad, he's taking multiple penalties. But you're absolutely right. For a young player, and maybe part of that frustration is not burying that 2-on-1. And anybody who's listened to the show knows that we're big fans of Perfetti's game. But you also have to
be a quality player.
Well, he's going to score. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 30 to 40 goal scorer, 3 or 4 years from now. But again, he's 20 years old. 20-year-old players, are going to make mistakes. Remember what we were doing when we were 20 years old.
I never made any mistakes.
Definitely wasn't playing in the NHL, I'll tell you that much. But I was doing stupid things well throughout my 20s, as you know, Drew. So
into your mid-30s, let's be honest.
I would agree with that. So I mean,
but
Perfetti didn't have a great game, and some of these penalties really came back to bite the Jets. But again, teachable moments. You got to learn from this, and you've got a big game coming up on Friday night versus Dallas. And Dallas is a team that you're competing with hard right now for first in the Central. I mean, not many people necessarily thought Winnipeg and Dallas would be competing with Colorado for first, but the division's wide open right now until Colorado goes on a huge winning streak. Right now this division is completely wide open.
Well, take advantage of your opportunities while they come in the midst of this Central Division stretch that the Jets are in. First of 4 games in a row against Central Division opponents, the Jets are with tonight's loss to the Minnesota Wild. I want to touch on the Kaprizov goal. We're probably not going to get into all 6 of the Wild goals because I don't think we need to hammer that too heavily. The Kaprizov goal, look, he's a fantastically talented player, but somebody's got to put a body on him in that instance. You can't just be stick checking him like they were, trying to stick check the puck away from him. He's too talented, and he's too good in tight in that situation. Somebody needs to go there and put a body on him. Stick checks are manna from heaven for a guy like Kirill Kaprizov. He's going to take advantage of that lack of physicality, each and every time he gets something good out of it. And the Jets were reminded about that 28 seconds into the third period, made it 4-1. And that was, to me, the end of the game in terms of it being competitive.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that, the Hurricanes did that a couple of nights ago, down 3 goals, but you just didn't, it wasn't the same game here. Like
the Jets, fine, the Jets aren't as good, record wise, never mind that. But to me, if I had to pick a team, which team is better, which team is more likely to come back from 3 goals down on a regular basis, it's the Hurricanes. It's not the Jets. The Jets are, especially with their, without Ehlers in their lineup, they're not built to come back from being down 3 goals like that late in the third period.
By the way, I don't know if you saw Kochetkov, Pyotr Kochetkov signed a 4-year deal today. So obviously they've liked what they've seen in the 4 or 5 games.
7 games, I think.
Yeah, he hasn't played a lot, but he was really good versus the Jets. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Hurricanes are playoff tested. I mean, this is a team that's been, in the playoffs, gone far. I mean, the Jets are just trying to get back to the playoffs. So you're comparing apples and oranges, but I agree with you. The Hurricanes, I think, by the time the season is over, I think they will be probably higher in the standings than the Jets are. But Kaprizov is an ultra talented player. Dylan and Schmidt were on the ice there, and Schmidt was the defenseman that Kaprizov got the original shot, and then Eriksson Ek, give him credit. He pulled the old Brendan Shanahan, giving him a little bump in front of the net, like Shanahan used to do to defensemen. So,
but that's just them wanting it more. It was too easy. Being more physical.
Kaprizov, went right to the net, jumped on the rebound. Again, that goal is not on Hellebuck. Like a goal scorer like Kaprizov, if you give him enough time and space and enough chances, exactly, nobody's stopping that. I mean, he roofed it on the power play. So, the penalty kill has been fantastic. The Jets have arguably had the best penalty kill in the NHL over the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, top 5 in the top 5, top 3 in the league. This isn't
a penalty kill thing. This is just overall the way the Jets played. They weren't hard enough on the puck. You could probably, if you wanted to go shift by shift in this game, you would probably have, individual puck battles were probably 3-1 in favor of the Wild. This was another kind of just one of those goals right in front of the net, rebound. The Jets just weren't moving bodies, and Kaprizov just buried it. And you're right. I mean, at that point in the game, it was pretty much over. You just didn't get the feeling like the Jets had a comeback in them tonight.
They certainly didn't. It ends up 6-1. The Wild had 2 more in the third period. Marcus Foligno, he gets his 3rd assist to Eriksson Ek, and Boldy gets his 7th assist to Kaprizov and Addison. And it's just all around disaster for the Winnipeg Jets in tonight's game.
I know I don't want to break them down either, Drew, but we did talk about the 5th goal a little bit. I mean,
that's right.
Again, it's a Blake Wheeler egregious giveaway to, I believe it was Eriksson Ek. or was it Foligno?
It was Foligno who I think forces the giveaway. Then it ends up back on his stick. Where he ends up getting the goal on it. I think it went from Foligno forced the turnover, Eriksson Ek, and then back. Yeah, exactly right. And then the power play goal. I mean, Mark Scheifele's out killing penalties. Mark Scheifele's played better defensively this year, but Mark Scheifele is not a penalty killer. And you got to, you saw why, as they outlined on the broadcast. I think it was Jamal Myers doing the color analysis.
Yep. He's done the last 3 games.
3 games. Yeah. No, he did a nice job in tonight's broadcast talking about how Scheifele was way too high defending in the box of the power play, and then they created a huge gap and a huge lane for Kaprizov to find Boldy and then the back of the net.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to pick on Sandberg. I mentioned this earlier, but he was also a little bit out of position. Like Kaprizov was just wide open, and you are going to have players open when you're on a power play, but a player should not be that wide open.
Well, and again, a guy, Sandberg and Scheifele have probably practiced on the penalty kill 0 times during so far this year, because that's not a pairing you usually see out on the penalty kill. Scheifele getting penalty killing time is not something that we expect to see, and it's certainly not going to become I think a regular occurrence.
Well, no, you have too many other good players, like we know, Lowry, David Gustafsson. I think Axel Jonsson Fjällby's been a revelation in terms of being able to kill
was
penalties.
Actually decent again tonight.
Saku Manalainen, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a solid, 5, half a dozen guys forwards that you can use. So I agree with you, Drew. Why would you use Scheifele when that's not his strength, right? And he's going to always be out there in the first power play. So I think the Scheifele experiment on the PK is not one that needs to last any longer.
I think it was strictly, Rick Bowness is hoping that maybe by something's going to, he might create some sort of offensive opportunity there. He knows that it's not going to be a solution. It's just, you're down at that point in time before the goal 5-1. Maybe Scheifele gets a shorthanded opportunity, and maybe you have the tiniest bit of a pulse. And what do you have to lose, if it becomes 6-1 instead? It's not really going to be a deciding factor in tonight's game. Winnipeg Jets not showing up for tonight's game was the deciding factor. 6-1 victory for the Minnesota Wild. This has been the Betway game recap, brought to you, of course, by Betway. It's simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play. Please play responsibly. When we come back, we're going to touch on Rick Bowness's post-game comments. We'll get you set for Friday night's contest. Again, another Central Division matchup deep in the heart of Texas, as the Jets and the Stars will do battle. This is the Illegal Curve post-game show. Ezra Ginsburg, Drew Mandel with you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And of course, the unique code word of the day and the Tough Duck hardest hitting comment as well. Much more to come. It's a Wednesday evening. We're live with the Illegal Curve postgame show.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh, looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Dave, my man, why are you in the car already? It's hours until game time.
Drew, it's because I'm stressed out right now, driving around downtown Winnipeg, looking for a parking spot, and I'm not finding one. I've lost Ginsburg. I don't even know where that guy is right now.
Dave, haven't I taught you anything? Do what I do. Pre-book your entire month's worth of game day parking with the Grid Park app. It's super easy to use and saves me both time and stress.
Well, Drew, I'm not independently wealthy like you are. So I'm sorry that I don't have millions of dollars to pre-book my parking month in advance. What's that going to cost you? $25?
How about $5?
Come on, $5? No way.
$5. I'm not telling you a lie. And our listeners can get a free park with the new special promo code Illegal Curve. Guess what? There's more.
Come on, there's more, Drew. You're lying to me. What more could there be?
Grid Park now has underground parking, so my car can stay warm during the game.
So wait a second. All the driving around I do, looking for parking, minus 40. You're telling me I could be toasty warm in a car after the hockey game?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Underground parking. Just download the Grid Park app. That's GRYD Park and use the code Illegal Curve. All one word. You'll park for free your first time.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. 20 minutes before 10 o'clock, Drew Mandel, Ezra Ginsburg with you. This is the Illegal Curve post-game show. Reminder, we'll be back in action on Friday night, a 7:30 p.m. puck drop on Friday night as the Jets will do battle with the Dallas Stars, meaning post-game show a little bit after 10 o'clock, probably somewhere around 10:15 p.m., give or take a couple of minutes there. We'll be back, hopefully, the three of us, the three amigos, the three musketeers. What else comes in threes?
Trifecta.
Yeah, the trifecta.
Well, what else comes in threes?
The Manitoba trilogy, the Manitoba triad. I don't know what else you want to go with. The three of us will be back on Friday night with the post game show.
I was going to say threesome, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
No, just I was sort of deliberately avoiding that one, but I appreciate the offer. I'm humbled, but not interested. Thank you though, Ezzy. I appreciate it.
The Jets do Dallas.
Yeah, that was clever too there. That's not bad as well. I've seen a lot of comments in the chat about flushing it. Just burn the tape. I saw Murat, I think, tweeted burn the tape. And I saw people.
Murat's going to be on the Saturday show, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. Murat's going to join us on Saturday morning at 9:30. So you can tune in for that. But I saw some people in the chat saying just burn it. Don't even look at it. Don't even look at the video. Don't even pay any attention to what happened tonight. Interesting perspective, of course, and I can understand why that immediately comes up. Rick Bowness was asked about that in the post game. I want to read his quote directly. This is courtesy of Mike McIntyre, who sent this out into the Twitter sphere. Quote, "We don't flush it, not a chance. I think one of the concerns is the lack of discipline. That really bothered me tonight. Penalties at the wrong time, turnovers at the wrong time, yapping at the ref." Rick Bowness called tonight's loss one of those harsh reminders of how to play this game the right way, a harsh reminder of how to win in this league. Rick Bowness says he told his team post-game to, quote, take pride in the fact that teams like Minnesota are chasing you in the standings. Quote, but also take the responsibility that comes with being on a good team, being prepared and playing the right way. None of those things we did tonight. I like that honesty from Rick Bowness, I like him saying, no, we're not just going to flush it. No, we're not just going to move on. We're going to take this as a learning opportunity. We're going to take this as a opportunity to, recalibrate ourselves after each and every game and in preparation for each and every game to ensure that what we're doing is the right thing to prepare for the game, to be ready for the game, and to ensure that you're doing what's necessary to be able to try and win the game.
Right. There's a few things here, right? Like we talked about the bad start. The first period was pretty awful. The beginning part of the second period, the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of the second period were not good. We talked about the second half of the second period was much better. But when you talk about whether it's the Perfetti penalty in the second period, the Wheeler penalty in the offensive zone in the first period, Dubois' roughing penalty at the end of the game, and yes, the game was over. Like I think it was 5-1 Wild at that point when Dubois took the penalty, or 4-1, regardless, doesn't matter. The game was over. But coaches hate that. All coaches hate that. Coaches, it doesn't matter if it's a tie game, a close game, or a blowout. Coaches hate penalties that guys take out of frustration because they don't need to take those penalties. And it really I think it reverberates around the whole team. It really does. And they want guys to finish, they say, the right way all the time, but they just want them to play out the game, play hard, and move on. And so I do think you can learn something from this game. You can and look at the Jets, even though the Jets are tied for second in the Central, and I think they're fourth or fifth overall in the NHL in terms of points percentage. The Jets are not a team that can take nights off. They just can't. Not only because they'll end up losing games like they did tonight against the Wild, but they can easily lose 2 or 3 games in a row. And the schedule is not easy coming up. We talked about not only do you have a game every second night, you've got Dallas coming up, you've got Colorado coming up. And look, say whatever you want about Chicago, they're not a pushover. They're leading the Dallas Stars right now. It was 3-1 last time I checked, or 3-0, I forget.
They're putting first of all, they still have Patrick Kane and they still have Jonathan Toews, so they have some talent, and they're putting forth an honest effort. And that's, I think what Rick Bowness is almost saying.
3-1 Chicago, right now. Over the Stars.
I think that's what Rick Bowness is saying in his comments is, look, you need to have at least, you're not going to win every game. And no coach expects you to win every game. But when your effort isn't at the level it needs to be, or when your preparation or your attention to detail or whatever aspect of the game is not at the level that it needs to be, that's not something you flush. That's something that you use as a learning opportunity. And this Winnipeg Jets team certainly is not beyond needing to take advantage of any learning opportunity that they might have. And so he's going to take this game, and they're off tomorrow, but I'm sure that on Friday, prior to, the game day skate, which will likely be an optional because that's often how it is, that he's going to take this and he's going to use it to educate his team and educate the players on that what happened tonight is not acceptable. And that's what a good coach does. That's what he takes, there's not necessarily teaching opportunities 82 games a year, but when there are teaching opportunities, you don't pass them up and just say, flush it. You're not the Tampa Bay Lightning. You're not the Colorado Avalanche that are more likely to be able to do that. You're a team that's still learning how to compete and how to win on a regular basis at the NHL level.
Right. And, this wasn't, I think, a situation where the Jets took the Wild lightly. Like we talked about it. I mean, the Jets and Wild battle multiple times every single year being in the same division. And, this Wild team, with the exception of, losing a guy like Kevin Fiala and a few other guys, I mean, it's a very similar team to last year's Wild. Same thing with the Jets. So it's not like, the Jets were surprised by the upstart Wild or anything like that. I mean, they just got outplayed. And I think there was no better example than when Wheeler coughed that puck up. Sure. I just think that, and again, end of the shift, we got to mention that. But, I mean, those are just turnovers, forced turnovers by a team that is playing and executing better. So it's not like, this was a situation where Gustafsson was really good and stoned the Jets in the first and second periods and the Wild were getting all the bounces. They definitely got the bounces. There's no doubt about that. Like on the Mason Shaw goal, on the Kalen Addison goal, the first 2 goals for the Wild were definitely just lucky bounces. But, a lot of these goals were, the Wild just beating the Jets to pucks, executing better. So you do have to flush it, but you also have to learn. You don't want to forget about this one because this was arguably the Jets' worst game of the season. This one and the Kings game, I think, were the Jets' 2 worst games.
And they won the Kings game, which and they certainly weren't in any position to win tonight's game. Bad loss by the Winnipeg Jets, 6-1. We'll see what they learn from it on Friday night when they meet the Dallas Stars, another Central Division matchup, their second of 4 in a row against the Central Division. Unique code word for the Illegal Curve merchandise contest. We do this after each and every Winnipeg Jets game here on the post-game show. If you're saying, Drew, how do I enter the Illegal Curve contest? In the show description, if you're on YouTube, in the show description, hit the drop-down arrow, you'll see it. There's a link. Follow that link. There's a whole bunch of different ways to enter the contest by following that link. If you can't find that link for some reason, go to our website, illegalcurve.com. You'll see that link throughout the website in all the different articles that we publish throughout the course of the day. It's in the morning papers, it's in the game day skate, it's probably in the post-game report. Find that link, click that link. All sorts of different ways for you to enter the Illegal Curve contest by following that link. Here is the unique code for tonight. Dave M is nothing if not predictable. Minnesota Nice is the unique code.
He didn't go with Sneaky Pete's.
Look, I said the text to Dave. I said, you're not on the show, no problem. Do you want me to pick the unique code? And he said, no, already done. And I said, okay, great. What is it? And he said, it's Minnesota Nice. And I said, you're nothing if not predictable, because, it's just, I think you and I need to stage a bit of an intervention with Dave here. They need to get a little more
we're the
pizzazz.
wordsmiths. Let's be honest. We're the wordsmiths of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show right here.
Need a little more pizzazz with some of these unique codes. I mean, if Frosty Winnipeg can guess them in the chat, then they need to be, reconsidered a little bit, maybe a little bit more pizzazz behind them, whatever it is. Yep. That'll be off air on the Illegal Curve post game show. But the unique code for tonight, Minnesota Nice, all one word, all caps. Enter that. You get bonus entries to win great merchandise here on the Illegal Curve post game show. Speaking of which, we have a contest winner to announce after the random draw was done, and it is actually a legitimate random draw, folks. We use a random generator to generate that the winner of the merchandise contest after tonight's game, Brad Kerbison, is the winner.
Is that Jeff's brother?
I believe it is Jeff's cousin, if I'm not mistaken.
Awesome.
But Jeff Kerbison, of course, used to be
good friend of the show.
Yeah, used to be on 1290, used to be a reporter for the Winnipeg Free Press. Brad Kerbison is the winner of the IC merchandise contest. So congratulations to Brad on picking up that victory. We'll be in touch with him via email to let him know what he has won. And Dave M, of course, there you go. That's Jeff's book, Broken Ribs and Popcorn. A great read if you haven't yet had the opportunity to read that one. It talks about obviously Jets 1.0, the Broken Ribs referring to Dale Howardchuk and what might have been the best Jets 1.0 team. Not in the NHL days, not counting the WHA days. But Brad Kerbison, congratulations to Brad for winning the merchandise contest. Ezzy, do you have a Tough Duck hardest hitting comment for us?
I'm still looking for one. There's a lot of good comments, so just give me a minute or two, Drew.
Okay.
You can keep talking, and I have to keep scrolling here. I was looking
scrolling
for a comment, but just give me a minute.
I'll give you 2 minutes. That's fine. It's just more of an opportunity for me to hog the mic. Maybe a Mindell Moose minute. No, I don't know anything about that. That's not going to help anybody. But I'll just keep talking about tonight's performance. The Nikolai Ehlers news came out from earlier today that he's going to be out of the lineup for, they said, about 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. For that hernia, he had that hernia surgery. Easy for you to say. Yeah, successful surgery. It's indeterminate how long he's going to be out of the lineup. Interesting that he had the surgery in Detroit. I don't know if there's a hernia specialist in Detroit. I would have to believe that there probably is, because why else would you fly to Detroit for a surgery? I'm sure it's lovely this time of year, but still probably I assume it's for medical reasons more than anything. But Ehlers will be out of the lineup. I mean, I would say probably looking at a best case scenario early in 2023. That would probably be what you're looking at as a best case scenario for Nikolai Ehlers to be back in the Winnipeg Jets lineup, Ezzy. And that's obviously the Jets at least know of it. They have a time frame now. It's not day to day. It's not maybe he's going to skate in a couple days. They know that, at least for the next 4 weeks, next 6 weeks, whatever length it's going to be, no Nikolai Ehlers. So it's going to be incumbent on everyone else to pick up the slack from him.
absolutely. It wasn't what they wanted. They wanted Healers back, but surgery was required. And you're right. Now it's not a question of, is he going to come back in a week or two? Now we have a time frame. It's 6 to 10 weeks, I believe, is what they said. But I think now they've revised it a little. Now it's more
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, there you go. But like you said, the earliest he's going to come back looks like end of December, early January.
Yeah.
So the guys come back earlier. Look at Brad Marchand. I mean, Brad Marchand, I think, is the best example. They were saying at back in October, early October, they were saying that Marchand wasn't going to come back till early December, something like that, and he ended up coming back a month and a half earlier.
Here's a tip for people, whoever in playoff hockey pools. If you hear of a guy who's injured late in the year and he's going to come back maybe the second round of the playoffs, always pick him earlier, because that guy is always going to come back in the first round of the playoffs, because every team, overestimates how long a guy's going to be out of the lineup for. Oh, he's out 6 to 8 weeks. Well, if he's, maybe he comes back in 4, maybe he's really only out 4 to 6 weeks, but they say 6 to 8 when he comes back in a month. It's a miracle of modern science. Look at this fine-tuned athlete. Look at the condition he's in. A mortal man or mortal woman would have been out of the lineup for 6 to 8 weeks, but not him. He's Superman or Superwoman, and they're back in the lineup for 4 weeks. So they always
a lot of fake news around playoff time, Drew.
Well, in general, though, you always say longer for an injury, and it tends to be a little bit sooner because it makes everybody seem as though they're back and healthy sooner than they actually are. So that's a little bit of a hint when it comes to some of the estimations of injuries. But at least for Nikolai Ehlers, my estimation would be that you probably won't see him until the start of 2023 or in and around there. Tough Duck, hardest hitting comment, Ezzy. You got a winner?
Yeah, I just sent it to you in the private chat there, Drew. We've got a nice little private chat where I oftentimes curse at Drew. We're going to give it to Julian Labossiere. I like this comment. It's a little bit of a, random comment in terms of Jansen Harkins, because he obviously, didn't score. But I like this comment saying, I liked Harkins the past couple games. Good speed, tried to make plays with the puck within reason. Lots of defensive effort. We talked about the fourth line last game. It's a Moose line with Mikey Esimont and David Gustafsson. And I really liked Harkins' game tonight. He stood out to me a little bit. Just energy, skating, working hard. I mean, Gustafsson, is a guy that we've talked about a lot on the Saturday show, a lot on the post-game show. That line was one of the better lines for the Jets. There wasn't a lot of offense being created, but those guys were hustling. Remember a shift late in the first period when the Jets didn't have a lot going. That line was giving them some energy. So I really like that comment from Julian about Harkins, a guy who went down to the Moose, scored a bunch of goals, got called up, and he's taking advantage. Like the Jets have, a lot of injuries with guys like Ehlers. We talked about Mason Appleton. Morgan Barron is still out of the lineup. So the Jets have some injured guys, which means Harkins is playing every single game now on a nightly basis for the Jets until they get healthy. So Julian, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, EZRA. I'm spelling it just to annoy Drew, or you can slide into my DMs on Twitter @ICSEG. Just send me your mailing address and a phone number, and then the good folks at Tough Duck will ship out a toque to you directly.
Isn't that great? Congratulations to Julian, the winner of tonight's Tough Duck hardest hitting comment. Congratulations to Brad Kerbison, the winner of the Illegal Curve merchandise contest. Big thanks to everybody for joining us here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. A disappointing result, I know, for many Jets fans, but we appreciate you joining us on this Wednesday night. If you're celebrating tomorrow, like we are in my household, a happy Thanksgiving to you. A happy
Absolutely.
US Thanksgiving. So, for those who are celebrating, by all means, I hope you enjoy your
What time
turkey.
should I come over, by the way, Drew?
Ezzy, the restraining order extends right through Thanksgiving, so you shan't be coming over at any point in time. But if you drive by slowly, maybe I'll fling some mashed potatoes out the window.
Just leave
at
a
you
little
or something.
stuffing at the front door.
Well, yeah, but it's not stuffing; it's dressing. We don't stuff it into the turkey. We just, it's stuffing when it's cooked inside the turkey.
So it's not, if it's not cooked inside the turkey, it's not called stuffing. Is that correct?
That's correct. A lot of people just call most people make dressing and they just call it stuffing.
Exactly.
But because I don't really want to eat something.
So but what you're saying though is there's no turducken this year.
There is no turducken this year in the Piles Mandel household. There's just not enough of us that warrants a turducken. There's just no way that we're going to eat that much turkey and or duck in one sitting.
Well, Laura's an amazing cook. I've eaten Laura's food before.
Yes.
So you're a lucky man. That's all I have to say. If there are any leftovers though, just put a garbage bag outside and I'll come pick it up later.
Well, I know you root through our garbage on a regular basis anyway, so I'll just do that as part of our standard par for the course for our relationship. Want to say a big thank you to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, who make the Saturday show, and who make the website a possibility. Our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, David Lucas at Rumors all week long. Most shows are sold out. There's a little bit of room left for the Friday early show, is what I understand. Tickets available, rumorscomedyclub.com. Otherwise, all sold out. Our friends at Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, they're the official title sponsor here of this post-game show. Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, Grid Park, and The Keg support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. If you know of a business, if you have a business, if you're associated with a business that you think should be a sponsor of this show, send one of us an email, send us a comment on Twitter via DM, whatever it might be. Put us in touch, and we'll be glad to send them information on joining our great list of sponsors. You might as well follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You know how to do that. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us comments in all the places so we know what you felt about the show. We'll be back Friday night with the Illegal Curve post-game show right around 10:15 or so after the Jets and the Dallas Stars. Winnipeg Jets dropping a 6-1 decision in Minnesota tonight. For Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Until Friday night, we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow at Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.